You step out onto your front porch on a November evening, the wind coming sharp off the fields, and the darkness is absolute. You look down at your boots, then at the 3 stone steps leading to the gravel walk, and you hesitate. A man can easily turn an ankle out here. So, what do most folks do? They call a contractor. They dig a long, ugly trench through the grass, tearing up the sod to bury a heavy plastic-coated cable. They screw expensive cast bronze fixtures into the ground that cost $80 a piece at the town center. And then they hook it all to a meter on the side of the house. Every hour those lights burn, that little wheel in the meter spins, and a few more pennies belong to the power company. Year in, year out, a bill that never stops coming, just to see where to place your foot. Understand this. There is a simpler way, an older way, that costs next to nothing and asks no permission from a wire or a grid. Lately, if you travel the back roads through Lancaster County, you will see a strange thing on the porches and along the front walks of the old farmhouses. A short length of heavy black pipe, mounted neat to the wood or set on a stout post. By day, it looks like nothing more than a piece of honest ironwork. But when the dusk settles, a soft, warm glow spills from the top, and little points of light shine out from the sides, scattered like stars down its length, tracing the path to the door. It burns no electricity. There is no wire run to it, no switch to flip, and no bill sent in the mail. It drinks the free light of the sun all day, stores it by its own hand, and gives it back to you when the night falls. I am Elias. My family came over from the Palatinate in 1838, and we have worked this Lancaster County ground ever since. Now, a man from the town might look at an Amish farm and wonder why we would have anything to do with a solar light. Let me be plain about that right at the start, because it matters and I would not have you confused. My people do not tie into the public electric grid. That is our rule, and it is firm. We do not take a wire from the power company into our homes to connect us to the dependencies of the modern world. But catching a bit of the sun's own light on a small square of glass, storing it by our own hand to use after dark on our own buildings, with no wire to any outside company, that is a different thing entirely. To many of us, it is the same as catching the rain off the roof in a cedar barrel, instead of buying water from a city main. The sun gives its light free to the just and the unjust alike, and if you keep a little of it to light your path, you owe no man and no corporation a thing for it. Stop and think about that. How did we get to a place where a man feels he must pay a monthly tax to a distant stranger just to light the steps to his own kitchen? Let me tell you why a light on the path means something to me, beyond it being handy for the boots. It goes back to my grandmother, Katie, and a habit she kept every day of her life. Every evening, just as the crows were flying back to the woods and the sky went gray, she would take her brass oil lamp, trim the wick with her small scissors, and strike a match. The smell of that sulfur and the clean, sharp scent of the kerosene would fill the kitchen. She would set that lit lamp right in the window pane that faced the western road, and she never failed it, not once, even when the snow was drifting against the glass. As a boy, I watched her do this, and one night when the wind was howling off the ridge, I asked her why she burned the oil when everyone in our house was already safe inside. She looked at me, her hands wrinkled from years of cabbage cutting and lye soap, and she said, "Elias, you never know who is out on the road in the dark and the cold. A soul might be lost, or weary, or afraid. A light in a window tells them that someone is near, that the way is found, and that there is a harbor if they need it." She spent her own money on that oil, night after night, for strangers she would never meet. She counted it a cheap price for the comfort it might give a traveler. I have never forgotten the sight of that yellow flame reflecting on the dark glass. So, when I show you this thing with the black pipe, understand I am not just showing you a clever trick to save $1. I am showing you how to keep my grandmother's lamp burning in the window. Only now, the sun pays for the oil. Now, let us be entirely honest about the limits of this method, because I will not give you an exaggerated promise. If you are looking for a light that will illuminate a whole barnyard so you can hitch a team of horses at midnight, or if you need a blinding beam to scare off foxes from the chicken coop, this is not that light. It is a soft guide, a marker for the feet, and a welcome to the eye. Furthermore, a solar light is only as good as the sky it sees. If you tuck this pipe deep under a dark porch roof where the rafters never see a ray of direct noon sun, it will fail you. The little panel will starve, the light will be weak, and it will die before the clock strikes midnight. It needs the open sky. Modern researchers at the universities like to talk about autonomous infrastructure and decentralized systems, using big words that take 3 syllables when one would do. They write long papers about what the old people simply called self-reliance. They are just now proving with their data what our grandfathers knew by instinct, that the small independent solution is always more resilient than the massive interconnected net. The thing itself starts simply, with a physical substance you can hold in your hand. You go to the local hardware store and you look for a length of heavy pipe. Folks favor the black kind, about 3 inches across. When you hold it, it feels cold, solid, and heavy. It has a dull, matte texture that doesn't reflect the world like a mirror, but absorbs the room. If you buy a 2-foot length, you will cut it right down the middle with an old handsaw, the teeth making a rhythmic scraping song in the quiet of the shop, until the smell of the shaved material rises up. Once it is cut, the edge is raw and white, jagged to the thumb. You take a piece of 80 grit sandpaper, feeling the rough flint against your skin, and you work that rim until it is smooth as a polished stone. But then comes the true craft, the part that transforms a piece of common plumbing into something that looks like fine ironwork from an old century. It involves the drilling of the holes, and there is a specific sense to how it must be done. You are going to take your drill, but if you follow a man's natural urge to make neat, tidy rows, you will ruin the beauty of the thing. Tidy rows look like a machine stamped it out in a factory. You must fight that urge. You want a pattern that is no pattern at all. Understand this. To make the light look rich and deep at night, like stars shifting through the branches of a white oak, you must use 3 different sizes of drill bits, a small, a medium, and a large, and you must scatter them completely at random, but only on the face that shows. When the light shines through those varied openings, it creates a texture that catches the eye and holds it. The preparation is done. The pipe is sanded. The bits are laid out on the bench, and the paint is waiting to give it that final, dark finish. Now, I am ready to pick up the tool and show you exactly how to place the holes and construct the hidden collar that keeps the light from falling through. Let me stop right here, before we make the first turn of the drill, so you can gather your thoughts on it. Now, take up your drill. The pipe is resting across your knees or clamped light to the bench, and the 3 bits are sitting in a row. We begin with the smallest one, the one no thicker than a matchstick. When the iron teeth bite into the dark material, a little curl of black shaving twists out, hot to the touch, smelling faintly of scorched oil and old earth. Do not rush this. Remember what we said about the machine. A machine wants everything straight, measured, and dead. You are a man, and your hand should follow the randomness of nature. Place a hole near the top, then skip down 3 inches and put another to the left. Turn the pipe a quarter turn in your hand. Drill another. You want a good, thorough peppering of these small holes all over the top half of the tube. But stop and think before you pull the trigger on the lower half. Leave the bottom 6 inches entirely solid. Why? Because that part will sit near the ground or the bracket, in the dark grass or against the wood, where no eye looks, and a solid base gives the fixture its weight and posture. Here is the first mistake the beginners make, and I see it near every time. A man gets excited. His mind is already on the night, and he drills holes all the way around the back of the pipe. Understand this. The back of this light sits flush against a wall or a flat wooden post. Any hole you put there is just throwing precious light into a piece of cedar or a stone wall where nobody can see it. It is wasted oil, as my grandmother would say. Keep your drill to the front and the sides, the part that faces the traveler on the walk. Once you have 30 or 40 of those small holes, lay that bit down. Pick up the medium one, about the width of a goose quill. Now you go back over the same ground, but you do not drill new holes. Instead, choose 12 or 15 of the small holes you already made, place the tip of the larger bit right in the center, and open them up. The drill will chatter a bit, a deeper sound, and a thicker ribbon of black will fall to the floor. You are creating variance. When you look through the pipe now, you see big stars and little stars, just like the night sky when the clouds clear off the ridge. Last, take your largest bit, the one as wide as a fat slate pencil. With this one, you must be very sparing. Choose only 4 or 5 holes, mostly down toward the middle of your cluster, and open them wide. If you put too many large holes near the top, the bare bulb of the solar light will glare out and blind the eye, and the mystery of the thing is gone. The secret of the craft is to let the large holes sit low, so they cast a wider pool of soft light down toward your feet, while the tiny holes stay high to sparkle like campfire smoke. Run your thumb over the pipe now. It will feel rough again, like a briar bush from the burrs left by the drill. Take that 80 grit paper and sand the whole face until it feels smooth as an old axe handle. Wipe the dust away with the flat of your hand. Now we bring it to the paint bench. I like a plain, flat black or a dark hammered bronze that has a little grit of metal in it. Shake the can until you hear the marble rattling clear and true inside. Here is where the second mistake happens. The one born of impatience. A man wants the pipe black right now, so he holds the nozzle close and squeezes hard. The paint comes out thick and wet. It fills up your small holes like grease, and then it begins to run down the side in ugly fat tears. When it dries, it looks like a cheap piece of plastic. Fight that hurry. Hold the can a full foot away. Give it little short whispers of spray, just a breath of color at a time. The first coat will look thin, gray, and speckled, and you will think you did it wrong. Let it sit 15 minutes in the sun until the sharp smell of the solvent begins to fade. Then give it the second whisper. By the third time, the black will lay down deep, even, and smooth, with a texture like fine cast iron. Make sure you tip the pipe up and spray down inside the rim about 3 inches, because the eye will look down into the top at dusk, and you would not have them see raw material inside, while that dries hard in the sun. Let us look at the light itself. You bought a common solar pathway light from the store, the kind that costs $2 or $3. Unscrew the top part, the little plastic hat that holds the glass panel, the battery, and the small bulb underneath. Throw the plastic stake away. We have no use for it. Now, if you drop that light into your 3-inch pipe, you will find it is just a hair too small. It will slip right down into the belly of the tube and disappear. We need a collar to catch it. Take a piece of common clothesline cord or thick hemp rope, the kind that smells of smycyle and wood smoke. Cut a length about a foot long. Run a thick bead of ordinary construction glue or heavy paste around the inside rim of the pipe, about ½ inch down from the top edge. Press the rope into that glue, wrapping it around the inside circle until it meets itself, and snip the extra. Hold it with your fingers for a minute until it sets. This creates a small hidden shelf inside the iron tube. When you drop the solar light in, the plastic rim of the light will catch on that rope collar and sit perfectly flush with the top of the pipe. The little square solar panel facing right up at the sky to drink the noon sun, completely hidden from the side. The final piece is the mounting board, and it should be as honest as the pipe. Find a scrap of cedar or old pine from the barn, about 4 inches wide and 3 inches longer than your pipe. If the wood is old and gray from the weather, leave it be. That gray looks handsome against the black iron. If it is new white wood, give it one thin wash of dark stain, just enough to color it, but not enough to hide the grain and the knots. To fix the pipe to the board, we use 2 small blocks of wood, 2 inches square, cut from an old surveyor's stake or a thick branch. Screw these blocks directly to the face of your mounting board. one near the top, one near the bottom. Now, lay your finished, dry pipe over those blocks. The blocks should fit snug inside the back of the pipe. Drive one small, neat black screw through the front of the pipe, through the back wall, right into the wooden block. It will hold the pipe solid against the wind, and nobody will ever see the screw because it is hidden in the shadows of the dark iron. Fix a simple iron hanging ring to the back of the board, the kind you use for a picture frame. The whole fixture weighs less than a horseshoe, so a single nail in the porch post or the wall is all it takes to hold it true. Look at it now, sitting on the bench in the afternoon light. It is clean, it is heavy, and it has the quiet look of a tool made to last a generation. The paint is dry, the collar is firm, and the sun is just starting to dip behind the orchard. We are ready to take it out to the porch, hang it by the door, and wait for the dark to show us what we have made. Let us stand here on the porch for a moment, while the blue hour fades into the true black of the evening, and look closely at how this little thing actually works. It seems like a small miracle, light appearing from a dark iron tube with no wire to the wall. But there is no magic in it. It follows the plain, orderly laws of the creation, the same laws that make the corn grow from the seed and the creek run down to the river. Modern scientists use complicated words like photovoltaic effect and semiconductor physics to describe what is happening on top of that pipe. But the reality is simple enough for any man to grasp if he stops to think on it. Understand this. That little square of dark glass sitting in the sun all day is not a passive thing. Inside it are two very thin layers of a material called silicon, which is nothing more than highly purified sand. One layer has too many tiny particles called electrons, and the other layer has too few. When the sun shines down at noon, the light comes down not just as warmth, but as millions of tiny packets of pure energy. These packets hit that top layer of sand like pebbles dropped into a pond, knocking those loose electrons free. Because of the way the two layers are pressed together, those little particles can only run in one direction. Down the small copper wire we hid inside the pipe, straight into the belly of the battery. Think of it like a farm pond with a small ditch dug into the hillside. All day long, the rain falls on the hill, and the ditch carries that water down into the pond, filling it up inch by inch. The battery is your pond. It holds that energy until you need it. Then, when the sun drops below the ridge and the sky goes dark, a small sensor, which is just a tiny gate that stays closed as long as light hits it, opens up. The gate opens and that stored energy flows out of the battery pond and through the little bulb, turning into the warm glow that is now spilling through the holes you drilled. But let us be entirely honest about what this little piece of sand and glass can and cannot do. A man who does not understand the limits of his tools is a man bound for disappointment, and I would not have you build one of these thinking it will do the work of a city street lamp. First, we must talk about the boundary of the sun itself. This light lives by the weather. On a long, clear day in July, when the sun sits high and hot over the fields for 14 hours, that little battery pond fills to the brim. The light will wake up at dusk, and it will shine bright and true clean through until the roosters crow at dawn. But come January, when the days are short, the sky is gray as a wet slate, and the sun hangs low in the south, that little panel might only get a few hours of weak filtered light. On those nights, your lamp will be dim, and it may well quit and go dark by 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening. That is not a defect in your work. It is simply the nature of the tool. It cannot give back more than it took in. Second, understand the limitation of the material you chose. We used a 3-inch black pipe because it is cheap, sturdy, and easy for a man to work with his hands. But that dark material absorbs the heat of the summer sun. If you live in a place down south where the summer heat bakes the bricks until they crack, that pipe will get hot enough to fry an egg. Extreme heat is the enemy of any battery. It wears it out ahead of its time, drying up the storage inside until it can only hold half what it used to. If your porch faces the brutal afternoon sun in a hot country, You must expect to change that little battery inside the light every year or two instead of every 5. We must also speak plain about the light itself. This is an ambient light, a marker. It works by contrast. If your house is in the middle of a bright town, with a city street lamp shining right on your front walk, and the neighbor's garage floodlights glaring across your lawn, this little pipe light will disappear. The heavy glare of the town will swallow the soft sparkle of your holes, and it will look like nothing more than a dark post on the wall. This light needs the natural darkness to show its beauty. It belongs on a quiet farm, a dark suburban path, or a cottage back in the timber where the night is still respected. And mind the placement near trees. A single overhanging branch of a walnut tree that casts a shadow across the panel for just 2 hours at midday can cut the light's nighttime life in half. The panel needs uninterrupted, direct sky. It is a harvester, and you cannot harvest wheat in the deep shade of the woods. So, look at what we have. It is a simple mechanism with clear, honest boundaries. It will not work everywhere, and it will not work perfectly every day of the year. But where the night is dark, the sun is permitted to shine, and a man understands that nature gives its gifts in season. It is a beautiful, faithful thing. Now that you understand the science of the sun on the sand, and the limits of what that little battery can hold, we are ready to look at how the whole thing comes together when the shadows lengthen, and how it transforms the walk to your door. Now that the dark has come completely, look down at the gravel walk. Those little points of light are throwing crisp, yellow dots across the stone, guiding your steps without ever shouting at your eyes. It looks modern to some, but the root of this practice is older than the state of Pennsylvania. My grandfather used to tell me that back in the old country, in the villages along the Rhine, the tinsmiths and the night watchmen would take old, dented sheets of scrap iron or pierced tin and roll them into cylinders. They called them punch lanterns or cloud lanterns because the light didn't come out in a harsh, blinding sheet, but broke up through the hand-punched-at holes like stars breaking through a cloud bank. They would place a small stub of tallow candle or a cup of lard oil inside and hang them from the eaves of the barns or by the gateposts. They used them for the exact same reason we use this pipe today, because a solid sheet of glass lets out a glare that blinds a man's eyes to the deep shadows around him, while a pierced lantern illuminates the path underfoot while keeping the eyes adjusted to the natural night. If you look into the old agricultural bulletins from the late 1800s, specifically the records kept by the early experimental statio, Ness in Ohio and Pennsylvania, you will find regular mentions of these pierced fixtures. The old masters of domestic economy wrote that a farmer should never use a naked flame near the threshing floor or along the paths where the wind could catch it, but should mask the light using iron or tin with small perforations. It was a matter of safety, thrift, and common sense. Even modern lighting institutes, in their recent studies on rural safety and what they call dark sky preservation, have come around to this old way of thinking. They have published papers showing that high-glare floodlights actually make a property less secure because they create deep, pitch-black shadows where the human eye cannot adapt. Their research proves that a low-lumen, scattered light source, exactly like the one we made with our 3 bits, allows the eye to remain relaxed and capable of seeing into the dark, while still safely marking the obstacles on the ground. The old people didn't have the machines to measure lumens, but they had the wisdom of their own eyes, and they arrived at the exact same truth. Stop and think about that. For hundreds of years, our ancestors knew how to live comfortably with the night without trying to conquer it with a wire. There is a great satisfaction in reaching back into that well of old knowledge and bringing a piece of it forward into your own yard. Look at what you have done here with an afternoon's quiet labor. You did not buy some expensive piece of factory plastic that will crack during the first hard frost of February. You did not pay an electrician to dig up your yard and tie you closer to a monthly bill. You took a piece of heavy, honest material, spent a few minutes with a handsaw and a drill, and you built a tool that works in harmony with the sky above you. It is a simple thing, and it is accessible to any man, woman, or child who can hold a piece of sandpaper or turn a drill. You do not need a workshop full of expensive machinery, and you do not need a degree in engineering. You only need the willingness to use your hands and the patience to let the pattern be random. I want to encourage you to try this for yourself. Go down to the local hardware store this week. Walk past the bright aisles of plastic goods and find the shelf where the heavy black pipe sits. Feel the cold weight of it in your hand. Take it home. Find a scrap of old wood behind the shed and make one light for your own porch. Put it by the steps where your children come home after dark, or along the walk where a neighbor might come visiting on a quiet evening. When you see that first soft glow appear on its own as the sun goes down, you will feel something that a modern wire can never give you. You will feel a small piece of your own dependency fall away. You will realize that the things you need to live safely and well do not all have to be bought from a company or metered out by a stranger. Some of them can be caught free from the sky, kept by your own hand, and shared with the world in a small act of traditional kindness. The home that lights the way for others is the home that remembers what a lamp in the window was always for. It costs you nothing but an afternoon, but the quiet satisfaction of it will stay with you every time you walk up your steps in the dark. Go on out to your shop, find a piece of pipe, and keep my grandmother's lamp burning.